In January 1996, snow blanketed the roads around Branson, Missouri, swallowing the entire town in a shroud of cold fog. Amid the echoes of New Year's music from the Lantern Bar, a young 23-year-old mother stepped out into the parking lot and vanished forever. No one knew that on that night, when the clock struck the new year, Missouri's justice had just entered a hibernation that would last nearly 3 decades. 2 days later, a driver discovered her body by the roadside at Ridge Creek, hair dusted with snow, hands still clutching a scrap of white cloth. The scene shook all of Branson, a brutal unsolved case with no apparent motive, no witnesses, leaving only a red coat, tire tracks, and the butt of a half-smoked Marlboro. The police vowed to find the killer, but as the years passed, the file grew thicker while hope slowly faded. Then in 2023, when DNA genealogical technology was introduced in Missouri, a semen sample collected from 1996 unexpectedly revived the case, thought long dead. The data trail led to a man no one suspected, a quiet lumber engineer living in the town of Ozark, just a few miles from the scene. He had been there, lived with the type of sawdust clinging to the victim's hair, smoked the exact brand of cigarette found by the road. The pursuit of justice began anew after 28 years, and this time, the old scratches on Branson's map didn't just revive memories of a murder, they unveiled a dark portrait of sin, silence, and the shadows people can hide for an entire lifetime. A mother lost, a child growing up with the question, "Who killed my mom?" and a small community forced to look at itself. This isn't just the story of a case cracked, it's a journey to find the truth, where justice may come late, but is never forgotten. Before diving deep into this shocking true story, let us know where you're watching from, and if you love these journeys to uncover forgotten justice, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next part. Branson, Missouri, New Year's Eve 1995, snow covered the small streets along Main Street, lights from shop windows reflecting on the wet, cold pavement. Country music spilled out from the Lantern Bar, where locals gathered to count down the moment into the new year. Amid that joyful crowd, Tanya Whitaker, 23, office worker and single mother of an 18-month-old boy, entered the bar with a few friends. She rarely went out, but tonight she wanted to enjoy a bit of the festive atmosphere before returning to work and her busy life. Tanya blended into the laughter, clinked glasses, chatted with friends, looking relieved and cheerful after months of exhaustion. Around near midnight, some people in the bar noticed her talking to a strange man, about 30 years old, wearing a brown leather jacket, tall build, deep voice and polite demeanor. No one knew who he was, just saw the two talking for quite a while at the bar, seemingly friendly, but not overly intimate. When the clock struck the first minutes of 1996, Tanya's friends left one by one, while she stayed a few more minutes. "I'll be right home," she said, smiling goodbye to them, then left the bar in her favorite red sweater and brown leather shoes. Outside, the snow fell heavier, blanketing the parked cars in front of the bar and the road leading to the suburbs. A few people still saw Tanya hurrying to the parking lot, head down against the wind, then her figure disappeared into the white snow. The next morning, as the pale sun filtered through the fog, Tanya's mother realized her daughter hadn't come home. The landline in the house was silent, her car wasn't in the lot, and the babysitter said Tanya hadn't called back as promised. All morning, she kept calling her daughter's cell phone, but only heard endless rings. As evening fell, worry turned to fear. She drove to Tanya's apartment, knocked on the door but no one answered. Inside, the lights were still off. The dining table had an open milk carton untouched. Everything seemed frozen in a strange silence. She called Tanya's friends. All said they left the bar early and didn't know where she went. Unable to wait any longer, she picked up the phone, hands trembling, and called the Branson Police Department to report her daughter missing. "Branson Police, how can I help you?" The desk officer's voice came over the phone early on New Year's Day, 1996. At the other end, a woman's voice trembled. "It's my daughter Tanya Whitaker. She hasn't come home since last night. She never goes anywhere without telling me." The officer sat up straight, setting his coffee aside. "Ma'am, please stay calm. When was the last time you spoke to your daughter?" "Around 8 last night, before she left home for the lantern. Just meeting friends. She said she'd be back early to pick up the baby this morning. But now," her voice choked, "she still hasn't come home. The phone's off, and the car's gone." Hearing that, the desk officer jotted quickly in his log, "Missing person, adult female, 23 years old." He asked a few more questions, then transferred the call to the investigations team. Just 10 minutes later, a patrol car left the station, heading to the Whitaker home on the south outskirts of Branson. Chief Mark Ridley, in charge, directed a search along the route from the Lantern Bar to the residential area, where Tanya lived. Snow had fallen all night, erasing most tracks, but they still decided to sweep every area, hoping for some clue. The search team, consisting of police, rescue workers, and dozens of local volunteers, fanned out across the suburban roads. The cold wind cut like knives, breaths turning to smoke in the still air. They called Tanya's name into the vast white emptiness, hearing only the wind echo back. Near noon, a young volunteer spotted something red caught on an old wooden fence, the red wool coat Tanya had worn the night before, one sleeve torn, stained with mud and frost. Police immediately cordoned off the area, photographed it, and bagged it as evidence. Many stood around in silence, understanding that the search from here was no longer about hoping for a survivor. As the snow melted gradually, they saw 2 deep tire tracks imprinted on the soft ground, heading toward Table Rock Lake. The marks showed the vehicle had stopped, then veered sharply, as if someone had fled in haste. Ridley ordered the tech team to measure and sample the mud stuck in the tire treads for lab testing. There were no surveillance cameras in the area. Branson in 1996 was still a small town, without a street security system. By afternoon, the search expanded to roads leading down to the lake. They hoped to find Tanya's beige sedan, but the whole day yielded no sign. Her mother, Linda Whitaker, was at the scene, her face pale in the cold. She clutched her daughter's scarf tightly, eyes following every police vehicle without a word. The local TV station aired urgent news, calling for public tips. Dozens more volunteers joined immediately, including fishermen around Table Rock Lake. They used boats to drag along the shore, shining spotlights into the murky water, but the thick snow made visibility nearly zero. Night fell, and police set up a temporary command post near where the coat was found. They spread out maps, marking areas to expand the search the next morning. Ridley told the officers, "If she doesn't come back on her own, we have to consider the worst." Outside, the snow began falling heavily again. The next morning, the search expanded to a 10-mile radius around Branson. Police knocked on every door, asking if anyone had seen Tanya or heard strange noises on New Year's Eve. A farmer said he'd seen headlights crossing a field around 2 in the morning, but couldn't remember the direction. The info was too vague to verify. As dusk fell, the rescue team ended the second day of searching with nothing but the coat and fading tire tracks in the snow. On the third day, the snow melted, revealing patches of damp mud and dry leaves. Still no new clues. Tanya's car hadn't been found. The strange man in the bar remained unidentified. The small town sank into heavy silence. Photos of Tanya were printed on flyers, posted everywhere: stores, gas stations, post offices. Young mother missing. Contact Branson police. 4 days after Tanya Whitaker went missing, Branson was shrouded in cold silence. The snow had stopped falling, exposing wet pavement covered in a thin layer of ice. That morning, Howard Lister, a delivery truck driver, drove along Ridge Creek Road, the narrow path running along the edge of a pine forest toward Table Rock Lake. In the dim yellow headlights, he saw a dark object by the roadside, thinking it was a large trash bag. As the truck approached, Lister realized it was a human body. He pulled over, turned on his hazard lights, and called 911. About 10 minutes later, the first patrol car arrived. Police cordoned off the area, headlights illuminating the patch of ground where the body lay. A young woman, lying on her back by the roadside, hair matted with mud, sweater torn, face swollen and bruised. Beside her was a white cloth stained with blood, one brown leather shoe, and an open purse spilling contents: keys, lipstick, a restaurant receipt. A few meters away, police saw two parallel tire tracks imprinted in the mud, stopping abruptly, then veering sharply onto the main road, as if the car had parked. Someone opened the door, then fled in a hurry. Chief Mark Ridley arrived quickly with the crime scene tech team. He observed in silence, only saying curtly, "Preserve the scene, don't step into the snow area." Technicians photographed every mark, sampled mud, fabric fibers, hair and shoe prints. On the ground was a long drag mark, showing the body had been pulled there rather than fallen in place. In nearby grass, an officer found a fresh Marlboro cigarette butt, not yet wet. The sample was sealed and sent to the Missouri State Lab. A young officer recognized the shoes and sweater, whispering, "Could be the missing girl, Tanya Whitaker." Ridley glanced at the photo pinned in the mobile command room. Every detail matched. He ordered the family brought in for identification. A few hours later, Linda Whitaker arrived, escorted through the icy cold. Upon seeing the body, she collapsed, choking out confirmation. "That's my daughter." No one said another word. The body was transported to the Greene County Medical Examiner's office for autopsy. Ridley watched the ambulance leave, blue lights reflecting on the wet snow. He knew the investigation had now shifted from missing person to homicide. The tech team continued combing the scene. Near the bloody cloth, they found small wood splinters mixed in the mud. One specialist noted, possibly from a cutting board or flat wooden object. The samples were collected, marked for priority testing. Along the road edge, the tire tracks disappeared onto the asphalt, making it impossible to trace the direction of travel. By noon, the snow melted into cold water, clearly revealing tire marks that crushed the grass. Ridley stood by the road, scanning the sparse forest stretching toward the lake. He knew the area was remote. No cameras, no nearby homes. The killer hadn't chosen this spot by chance. News of the body discovery spread quickly. KI3 station aired a special bulletin: "Police find woman's body at Ridge Creek Road, believed to be Tanya Whitaker, missing on New Year's Eve." Locals gathered outside grocery stores, stunned and watching. Many who had joined the search felt shocked, never expecting the girl they hoped was alive to be found in this state. That evening, in the police station briefing room, Ridley and the investigation team reviewed the entire search map. The red coat had been found 3 miles from the scene. Tanya's car still missing. The evidence showed she was attacked elsewhere, then driven here and dumped. No signs of robbery, so the motive could be sexual or personal. Ridley wrote in his notebook, "Perp knew the victim, scene may be staged." Outside, night fell quickly. Patrol cars left Ridge Creek Road, leaving only a lone yellow light on the snow. In that quiet atmosphere, the Tanya Whitaker case was officially opened as a homicide, beginning a nearly 3-decade investigation journey. That same afternoon, Tanya Whitaker's body was transported to the Greene County Medical Examiner's office in Springfield. Missouri's weather was still bone-chilling cold, and the last flecks of snow clung to the body bag as the ambulance pulled up to the morgue entrance. Inside, the air was eerily quiet, save for the faint clink of metal as technicians prepared their instruments. Dr. Eleanor Hayes, the chief medical examiner with over 20 years in the field, was in charge. She opened the file, glancing at the crime scene photo, a young woman, face swollen and bruised, eyes half closed. In Sheriff Ridley's notes, there was a brief line: "Possible assault at another location, body transported to Ridge Creek." The autopsy began at 2 p.m. The technicians documented meticulously, each wound described in the report. On the back of the victim's head was a deep, nearly 8 centimeters laceration, surrounded by an extensive area of bruising. The marks indicated she had been struck with a hard, flat object, possibly hardwood. No metal fragments, no skull fractures, suggesting the weapon had a large contact area, likely a cutting board or similar item. On the neck were fingerprint-shaped bruises, consistent with manual strangulation. The larynx was crushed, a classic sign of mechanical asphyxiation. Hayes noted, cause of death, cranial trauma and strangulation, estimated time of death between 1:30 and 3 a.m. on January 1, 1996. During the clothing examination, technicians discovered fine wood dust particles on Tanya's collar and in her hair. Under the microscope, they showed a fibrous structure, like sawdust or pine shavings. No one understood why this dust was there, as the Ridge Creek scene had only clay and snow. Hayes ordered the wood dust sample sealed and sent to the state's materials analysis lab for comparison with industrial woods. Her notes added a line, "Does not match outdoor environment, possible occurrence in an enclosed space near wood materials." Next, the forensics team collected body fluid and soft tissue samples. From the lower abdomen, they detected male semen. The sample was isolated and coded as DNA male #1, an anonymous identifier, but the only key left behind. In 1996, DNA technology was still in its early stages, able to determine gene groups but not full sequencing. Still, Hayes directed that the sample be preserved in liquid nitrogen, noting priority for long-term cold storage potential use in the future. This decision, years later, would become the pivotal factor in the case. As the autopsy continued, Dr. Hayes noticed small circular abrasions on Tanya's wrists, as if rubbed against metal. Under her fingernails, she had retained a few dark fabric fibers, not matching her clothing. This suggested Tanya may have tried to fight back before losing consciousness. However, there were no major bruises or broken bones, possibly she was struck unexpectedly, with no chance to resist. On her right hand, a faint small ink smudge in the shape of the letter R, possibly from a bar or restaurant stamp, where she had been earlier. This detail was recorded, as it could help pinpoint the last time the victim was conscious. That evening, the preliminary forensic report was completed. Conclusions: cause of death, blunt force head trauma combined with strangulation. Time of death, approximately 1:30, 3 a.m. on January 1, 1996. Sexual activity before or after death, undetermined. No signs of robbery, jewelry and wallet intact. Wood dust found on hair, collar, cuffs, indicates victim was in a location with wood surfaces or a workshop. Assault likely occurred in an enclosed space, without wind and grit, like outdoors on Ridge Creek Road. Ridley received the report that same night. He read each line slowly, pausing at wood dust on hair and clothing. This town had only a few lumber mills around the Ozarks, and he knew each one. Not more than 4 miles, he murmured to his deputy. Outside, the wind whistled through the window frame, carrying the chill of the pine forest. Ridley folded the file, knowing the investigation would now veer down a different path. Before leaving the morgue, Hayes added a final note to the file: body shows no drag abrasions, indicating the victim was dead before being moved. Placement at Ridge Creek was solely for disposal. She closed the folder, peering through the frosted glass door. Outside, the snow had stopped, leaving a thick fog blanketing Springfield. In the dim light, the small details, wood dust, semen, neck bruises, became the first pieces of the crime puzzle that nearly 30 years later, police would finally assemble completely. 2 days after the preliminary autopsy results, Sheriff Mark Ridley called an emergency meeting at the Branson investigation room. The forensic report confirmed Tanya Whitaker died from severe head blows and strangulation, but there was no evidence of a specific suspect. In the personal file, the name Tim Dawson, Tanya's ex-boyfriend and the child's father, appeared first. Dawson, 26, worked at a small auto repair shop in town, known for his hot temper and a prior misdemeanor for public disturbance. Ridley knew from a quick scan that he was the first person to meet. That afternoon, police invited Tim to the station. He entered the interrogation room, burly build, disheveled hair, dark circles under his eyes. Upon hearing Tanya was dead, Tim doubled over, hands clenched on the table. Ridley observed the reaction, not rushing to question. In Detective Morales's report, Tanya's neighbors had recounted multiple arguments, sometimes with Tim yelling and throwing things. Another witness said she'd seen Tanya fleeing the house at night, eyes red, carrying the baby. Folks in the neighborhood were no strangers to their strained relationship. Ridley started with gentle questions. When did Tim last see Tanya? Did he contact her on New Year's Eve? What was their relationship beyond co-parenting? Tim spoke in a trembling voice, trying to prove his innocence. He said they'd broken up months ago, still talked occasionally for the child's sake, but no more fights. He insisted that on the evening of December 31st, he'd been drinking with coworkers at a different bar downtown, not the Lantern. Ridley noted every detail, showing no reaction. To verify, police checked the alibi with the bar Tim mentioned. The manager confirmed he was there, drinking heavily, and around 1 a.m., patrol cops pulled him over for DUI. Springfield PD records confirmed Tim was detained until 7 a.m. on January 1st, right around the estimated time of Tanya's murder. As Ridley read the report, he knew this alibi was nearly ironclad. Still, procedure required full steps. The tech unit took Tim's DNA sample to compare with male #1 from the victim's body. A few days later, results came back, no match. Detailed analysis showed clear genetic differences, fully ruling out Tim's presence at the scene. Ridley received the results, set the file down, feeling a mix of relief and disappointment. The killer wasn't the obvious suspect he'd thought. Meanwhile, Branson's public opinion stirred. Media ran headlines, like "Police investigate baby's father in Tanya Whitaker case," leading many to assume Tim was guilty. When he learned he'd been cleared, Tim left the station exhausted. Facing media cameras, he said only, "I want to know who did that to her too." The case once again hit a dead end. Every investigative lead circled back to square one. The only clues, the red coat, tire tracks, Marlboro butt, wood dust and hair, still couldn't connect into a story. Ridley and his team reviewed every statement, the stranger in the bar, the gray truck, wood traces. But it was all fragments insufficient for charges. In the weekend meeting, Morales said, "If not Tim, then it has to be someone she met that night. Maybe a casual acquaintance." Ridley nodded, jotting a line in his notebook, "No robbery motive. Assault has personal, or lustful element." He knew this would make the case exponentially harder, as Branson wasn't a big city where people were strangers. The killer could be living among them, still going to work, still greeting neighbors each morning. 3 weeks after Tanya's death, the file was officially forwarded to the Missouri State Prosecutor's Office. Under investigation status, a succinct line was marked, "Suspect unidentified." TV news coverage tapered off, the smiling photo of the young woman in her yearbook replaced by news stories. But for Ridley, the case never closed. He looked at the crime scene photo, the white scarf on snow, faint tire tracks in mud, and knew the answers were still out there, just waiting for the right direction. After ruling out Tim Dawson, the investigation seemed headed for a dead end, when Detective Ruben Morales brought in a new detail. Reviewing statements from the Lantern Bar, he found 2 overlooked witnesses, Rachel Lang, the waitress, and Jack Murray, the musician performing that night. Both recalled seeing a strange man talking to Tanya Whitaker around midnight. Rachel described him as tall, about 30, in a brown leather jacket, southern accent, polite but with something that made her feel uneasy. Jack said that after his set ended, he saw Tanya and the man leaving the bar together, heading toward the snowy parking lot. "I thought they knew each other," he said, but the girl seemed hesitant. Upon hearing this, Sheriff Mark Ridley realized it might be their first real lead. He and Morales returned to the bar, requesting security footage. The system used old VHS tapes, with only a blurry angle under yellow lights. They rewound it dozens of times until Tanya appeared at the bar counter, turning to walk out the door with a man in a dark jacket. The image was so fuzzy they could only make out a tall figure with broad shoulders. Minutes later, headlights from a gray pickup truck flashed on and drove off the lot. Heavy snow obscured the license plate, but they noted the direction, south toward Maple Hollow Road, near where Tanya's body was found. Police immediately opened a new line of inquiry. They tentatively named the suspect, the man in the leather jacket. Based on statements and video, the team pegged the truck as a early 1990s Ford or Chevrolet. The registry of gray pickups in Branson then numbered over 500. Officers fanned out across the area, interviewing every owner. No one recalled being out that New Year's Eve. Most claimed they stayed home due to the blizzard. The leads faded into obscurity again. A week later, Morales located Calvin Reed, the bar's valet. Reed said that when the bar closed, he saw a man in a leather jacket hurrying out the back door, jamming keys into an old gray pickup. Sounded like an early 90s Ford engine, he recalled. Reed added the man was smoking, smoke billowing in the headlights, a detail that immediately caught Ridley's attention, as a Marlboro butt had been found at the Ridge Creek Road scene. From those accounts, police sketched a provisional suspect profile: male about 35 years old, 6 feet tall, short hair, brown leather jacket, drives a gray pickup, smokes Marlboros. The sketch was printed in local papers and aired on KY3 with a message: "If you recognize this man, call Branson PD." The news buzzed through town. Dozens of tips flooded the hotline, but all led to dead ends, unrelated people. Some claimed to have seen a similar man at a gas station. Others said he was a tourist who passed through and vanished. Nothing concrete. Ridley and Morales reviewed the video once more. They noticed the truck left just minutes after Tanya exited. Its direction matched the route to the body discovery site. "He wasn't just the last to see her," Ridley said. "He may have been the one who took her." That statement went into the log, marking a new investigative direction. In the following weeks, police expanded the search to neighboring areas, checking seasonal worker lists at Branson lumber mills, since the wood dust in the victim's hair remained an unsolved question. However, no one fully matched the video man's description. A few carpenters or truck drivers were questioned, but all had alibis. Early February, Ridley sat alone in his office, staring at the sketch on the evidence board. The man in the leather jacket was now just a shadow, no name, no address, no background. All they had was a blurry image, and a truck with no clear plate. He knew the case was slipping away. In his official log, he wrote the final line for this phase: "Suspect unidentified, new lead, leather jacket man, gray truck." Await future expanded DNA data. Outside, snow began falling again. The station door shut, leaving dim light shining on Tanya's photo on the bulletin board. Below missing person, Ridley added a new sheet, written in black pen: "The man in the leather jacket, still unknown." 1 month after releasing the sketch of the man in the leather jacket, Branson police received a call from Harrison, Arkansas, a small town nearly 2 hours' drive from the Missouri border. The tipster was the owner of a repair shop, who said a man matching the sketch exactly had brought in an old gray pickup truck for repairs just days after Tanya's case aired on the news. The shop owner noted strange dents on the truck bed, like marks from a heavy impact. Police immediately contacted the local sheriff's office and requested an inspection of the vehicle. The truck's owner was Robert Keene, 34 years old, a carpenter working at a small workshop on the outskirts of Harrison. When questioned, Keene remained calm, saying he'd never been to Branson and only knew about the case from the news. However, when the investigative team arrived at his workshop, they discovered a large wooden cutting board with a fresh crack and a few faint brown streaks. This coincidence immediately raised suspicions. The forensics report had determined Tanya had been struck with a flat object, possibly a wooden cutting board. Ridley, already exhausted from the lack of progress, decided to drive to Arkansas himself to interrogate Keene. In the makeshift interrogation room, Keene insisted he'd never heard of Tanya Whitaker. He said he'd spent New Year's Eve 1995 drinking at home with friends, and he could prove it with their statements. When Ridley asked about the cutting board, Keene explained it was a defective product that had cracked during processing. He appeared cooperative, but his fleeting evasive glances led police to hold him for a DNA sample to compare with male #1. While awaiting results, the forensics team searched the carpentry shop. They collected several wood chips matching yellow pine, the same type of sawdust found in Tanya's hair. This match fueled public belief that police had caught the killer. Local newspapers ran headlines, "Carpenter arrested in Tanya Whitaker case." The news spread quickly, and within days, Robert Keene's name was all over the evening broadcasts. However, after 7 days, results from the Missouri State Lab came back and shattered everything. The DNA didn't match. Keene's sample was completely different from the male #1 sample taken from Tanya's body. Additionally, detailed testing showed the brown streaks on the board were just wood stain, not blood. Keene's friends also confirmed he'd been with them all New Year's Eve. With no grounds to hold him, Ridley was forced to order his release. As he stepped out of the station, Keene faced dozens of reporters waiting outside. He only said briefly, "I didn't do anything. They were wrong." That statement quickly became the talk of the town. Residents began criticizing the police for arresting an innocent man, tarnishing the department's credibility. In coffee shops, people gossiped that Ridley had been too hasty, that the police were just trying to pin the case on someone. For Ridley, this failure was a heavy blow. He knew the media wouldn't let it go. In his report to the state, he wrote, "Insufficient evidence to charge Robert Keene. Wood dust traces may result from occupational exposure. Case remains open," but deep down he knew they'd wasted too much time on a false lead. As Keene left Arkansas, he carried bitterness with him, while Branson police returned to square one. Every clue, the man in the leather jacket, the gray pickup truck, the sawdust, was now meaningless. Tanya Whitaker's file grew a few more pages, but the answers remained blank. Ridley sat alone in his office, staring at the victim's photo placed next to the file, and sighed. He knew he'd just lost the most precious thing in an investigation: time and the community's trust. After the failure with Robert Keene, the investigation hit a dead end. Every lead had been exhausted to the brink. Tire tracks, sawdust, cigarette butts, the man in the leather jacket, all that remained were fading notes in the file. Police Chief Mark Ridley faced heavy media criticism, and was forced to step down from directly leading the case. By the end of 1999, after 4 years of fruitless investigation, the state prosecutor's office decided to close the file, transferring all documents to the Missouri State Highway Patrol Cold Case Unit, the division specializing in archiving and re-examining unsolved cases. In the handover log, the file, now over 600 pages thick, was assigned a new code, Whitaker, T. 1996. Inside were hundreds of crime scene photos, evidence samples carefully sealed in labeled plastic bags marked DNA unknown, and endless reports leading nowhere. The file was stored in the state's archive warehouse in Jefferson City, where hundreds of other cases lay dormant, waiting for technology or luck to bring them back to light. Branson, the town once in turmoil over the murder, gradually returned to its everyday rhythm. The Lantern Bar stayed open, but people mentioned Tanya Whitaker's name less and less. Only Linda Whitaker, her mother, kept the habit of sending letters to the police each year, asking if there was any news. She started a small reward fund for information leading to a break in the case, beginning with just a few $100s, then gradually increasing to over $5,000 money she'd scrimped and saved over years working at the post office. Every Christmas, she placed an ad in the local paper, "Justice for Tanya, we're still waiting." In the small house on Maple Street, Ethan, Tanya's son, grew up in the shadow of a mother he only remembered through old photos. In Ethan's hazy memories, his mom smiled so kindly, often singing lullabies to put him to sleep. But the rest of his recollections were whispers from adults, newspaper articles with her black and white photo, and the question no one answered: who killed my mom? Linda never said much, just that the police were still trying. By 2000, Ridley retired. In his final meeting with Morales, he only said one thing: we got so close, just off by one person. Morales kept Tanya's old photo, tacked to the bulletin board in his office, as a reminder that the case had never truly ended. Time passed, technology changed. The CODIS system, the FBI's national DNA database, expanded, allowing comparisons of millions of genetic profiles. But Tanya's male #1 sample still didn't match any records. Police had hoped a criminal arrested in another state might match, but year after year, the system returned. No match found. Linda aged alongside her, waiting. Every time the media revisited the case, she showed up for interviews, her voice trembling but resolute. "I just want to know the truth before I die," she said on a 2008 radio show. By then, Ethan was a senior at the University of Missouri. He said he'd never dared look at the crime scene photos, only knowing his mom was taken by a bad person. In his personal journal, Ethan wrote, "I don't remember Mom's voice, just Graham's silence every time someone mentioned the case." Occasionally, state police would pull the Whitaker 1996 file for review, but no new technology or witnesses emerged. The original investigators gradually retired, replaced by a new generation. They only knew Tanya through yellowed pages and outdated evidence samples in the freezer. To them, it was just one of hundreds of unsolved cases. In 2015, as Ethan turned 30, he decided to relaunch the Tanya Whitaker Memorial Foundation, raising funds for projects supporting missing persons victims. At a small ceremony in Branson High School, he said, "If justice takes time, then we'll wait. But I don't believe any crime should be buried forever." That quote made the papers, bringing Tanya's name back after nearly 2 decades of silence. Even so, officially, the case remained classified as a cold case. In the archive, the file coded Whitaker T. 1996 sat among hundreds of others, wrapped in moisture-proof nylon, labeled unsolved homicide. No one remembered the red jacket, the Marlboro butt, or the sawdust in her hair anymore. Only quiet memories lived on in a few people: the aging mother still sending yearly letters, the son still carrying the Whitaker name with the belief that someday, someone would reopen that file, read to the last page, and realize the story had never truly ended. Nearly 30 years after the Tanya Whitaker murder, the Whitaker T. 1996 file still lay dormant in the Missouri State Archive, until new technology breathed fresh life into it. In 2023, the Missouri Department of Justice partnered with the FBI and private labs to launch the DNA Family Tree Initiative, a project applying genealogical genetics to cold cases. Tanya's case ranked 12th on the selection list, thanks to the male #1 DNA sample preserved perfectly for nearly 3 decades. That anonymous semen sample was sent to Verigen Labs in St. Louis, where analysts decoded the full genetic sequence and cross-referenced it with public genealogy databases. The first results showed a 22% genetic match to a Hollister family living in Springfield. Genealogy experts suggested the suspect could be a distant relative, possibly sharing a great-grandparent or an illegitimate child. Using the Hollister family tree, they narrowed it to 4 men living around Springfield, one of whom had a prior record of violence. Police secretly collected a DNA sample from this man via a discarded coffee cup during an interview, but it didn't match. 2 other family members were also ruled out. At that point, genealogist Karen Duvall realized the initial data had led the team astray. The male #1 sample wasn't directly from the Hollister line, but from a collateral branch that had split off generations earlier, possibly with a name change or migration to another state. She decided to expand the search beyond Missouri, scanning thousands of genealogical profiles on GED Match and Family Tree DNA. After nearly 2 months, an unexpected result emerged. A user named Morgan Ward in Arkansas had a second cousin once removed, genetic link to male #1, a distant relative, but sharing common ancestry. Checking residency records, Duvall discovered the Ward family had a member living in Branson in 1996, right when Tanya was killed. That name was Daniel Ward, born in 1967, who had worked in woodworking at a small furniture company. Currently he lived in the town of Ozark, about 60 kilometers from Branson. This information was forwarded to Detective Ruben Morales, who had worked the case in 1996, and was now a senior officer in the cold case unit. Upon seeing Ward, Morales immediately recalled the sawdust in Tanya's hair and clothes, a clue overlooked in the old forensics report. He paused thoughtfully, then said, "If he's a woodworker, the pieces might start fitting together." To verify, the Verigen Labs team continued expanding the Ward family search. They cross-referenced hundreds of genetic samples, eliminating those that didn't fit by age, gender, or geography. Finally, the list narrowed to 3 men: Daniel Ward in Ozark, Jeff Ward in Fort Smith, and Clinton Ward in Little Rock. Only Daniel had lived in Branson during 1995-1997. Moreover, his employment records clearly noted a job at a lumber mill near Maple Hollow Road, just a few miles from where Tanya's body was found. Morales's report to the state prosecutor's office stated clearly, genetic link between male #1 sample and Ward family shows high confidence. Daniel Ward, 57 years old, residing in Ozark, former carpenter in Branson in 1996, matches occupational profile and wood dust evidence in the Whitaker case. The accompanying recommendation: initiate covert surveillance of suspect in initial phase. Once confirmed, the investigative team couldn't hide their surprise. Had they not expanded beyond Missouri, the case would have faded into oblivion again. It was the Ward branch, seemingly unrelated, that brought it back to light. Duvall later wrote in her report, "We ruled out at least 7 false leads before the data truly pointed to Ward." That was the moment the whole team understood, luck is real in this work. In April 2023, the Whitaker 1996 file was officially marked reactivated in the cold case unit system. The dusty old binder was pulled from storage and placed on Morales's desk, next to Tanya's photo, now yellowed with age. Under the light, he noticed Chief Ridley's old scribbled notes from years ago were still there. Perp may be an acquaintance woodworker. After 27 years, that assessment was finally proven right. That evening, as he left the office, Morales paused at the bulletin board in the hallway, lined with dozens of unsolved files. He quietly pinned a new sheet: Case #1996 Whitaker, active investigation. Primary lead, Daniel Ward. No one on the team knew that this chain of data, starting from a forgotten DNA sample, was about to lead them to the biggest breakthrough in Missouri investigative history. A case once buried in the dust of time was coming alive again, and the killer's name was about to be written down, after 27 long years of waiting. In May 2023, after genealogical results pointed to the Ward family, the Tanya Whitaker case file was reopened. The name Daniel Ward stood out in the list of suspects, and the cold case unit's internal meeting quickly focused on this man. His driver's license photo appeared on the screen: salt and pepper hair, pale eyes, a face calm to the point of coldness. Under the line of information, his occupation was listed: woodworker, Springfield Millworks. Detective Ruben Morales presented, he's 57 years old, single, living in the town of Ozark, less than an hour's drive from Branson. Residence records show that from 1995-1997, Ward rented a house on Maple Hollow Road, just 2 miles from where Tanya's body was found. The room fell silent. Morales pulled up the old map, pointing to the red-shaded area. If he left the lantern that night, this was the shortest route home. Ward had a stable work history, no criminal record, no traffic violations. He was well known in the woodworking industry, specializing in high-end tabletops and cutting boards, a detail that particularly caught Morales's attention. The forensic report had determined the murder weapon could be a flat wooden object, most likely a kitchen cutting board. This coincidence sent a chill through the group. Ozark police confirmed that Ward lived quietly, with little social interaction. Neighbors described him as kind, polite, reserved, never caused any trouble. A woman living across the street said, "He just went to work, then came home. In his free time, he mowed the lawn or fixed the fence. Everyone in the neighborhood thought he was just a nice guy." No one knew that, nearly 30 years earlier, he had lived near the scene of a murder. From tax data and work documents, police determined Ward worked for Branson Timber Products at the end of 1995, right during the period when Tanya was killed. After the case, he left Branson and moved back to Ozark, changing his phone number and address without leaving any forwarding contact. Morales read to that line, murmuring, "He vanished right after she died." To verify, the Cold Case Unit launched a covert surveillance operation, codenamed Operation Hollow. Morales led a 4-person team, coordinating with Ozark police. Objective: obtain a DNA sample from Ward without alerting him to the investigation. On June 10, they began tailing him. Ward's house was on the edge of town, with his own workshop in the back. Every morning he left at 6, driving his early 1990s gray Ford Ranger to Springfield Millworks. In the evenings, he stopped at the grocery store for coffee and Marlboro Reds. That detail was immediately circled in red in Morales's notebook. Same brand of cigarettes found at the Ridge Creek Road scene. 2 weeks passed, and Ward showed no suspicious behavior. He lived routinely, worked diligently, spending weekends fishing alone. But in Morales's eyes, that very quietness was abnormal. "You can't live 30 years without slipping up somewhere," he told the surveillance team. "We just need one small mistake." On the night of June 22, as a light rain fell, Ward stepped out onto the porch to smoke. An agent snapped photos from afar, capturing him tossing the butt onto the yard. As soon as he went back inside, the undercover team retrieved the sample, sealing it in an evidence bag. That same night, they collected his household trash from outside the house, including tissues, wood shavings, and a few more butts. Everything was rushed to the Missouri State Lab. While awaiting results, Morales tracked down former co-workers from Ward's time at Branson in 1996. One recounted that Ward never talked about himself, but remembered something odd. Back then, he brought some sample cutting boards to the shop, testing new wood types. After Christmas that year, he took a few days off, then suddenly announced he was switching jobs. Another said Ward was mild-mannered, but quick to anger if you touched on personal matters. Those scattered accounts weren't enough for testimony, but they made the picture clearer. Ward had lived near where Tanya was killed, worked in woodworking, smoked Marlboros, and disappeared from Branson right after the crime. It all fit the forgotten pieces from nearly 3 decades. In the report to the state prosecutor's office, Morales concluded, Daniel Ward, 57 years old, residing in Ozark, formerly employed in woodworking in Branson. Occupation and residence history match physical evidence from the Whitaker case. DNA sample obtained, awaiting comparison results. Recommend continued surveillance. That night, as he left the office, Morales stood before the window overlooking the dim lights of Ozark town. He recalled Tanya's face in the old photo, the young woman smiling brightly. After 27 years, traces thought buried were slowly rising from the dust of time. In his notebook, he wrote a short line, "If the DNA matches, this won't be a suspect anymore, it'll be the killer who survived 27 years. After nearly a year of surveillance, the Cold Case Unit police still lacked the most crucial piece: direct biological evidence to confirm Daniel Ward as the perpetrator. The samples collected from trash in 2023 yielded DNA too weak for a full comparison. Morales knew that just one new clean sample, and the Tanya Whitaker case would have closure after nearly 30 years. On the morning of March 4, 2024, the surveillance team continued watching Ward at the Springfield Millworks shop. The sky was gray and cold, wind blowing through the rows of dried lumber in the yard. Morales sat in the concealed car across from the gate, binoculars in hand, eyes fixed on the target. He knew Ward's habit. Every afternoon after shift, He always smoked a Marlboro Red before getting in his truck. If they were lucky, they'd get a sample that day. At 5:10 p.m., Ward appeared, gray jacket on, pack of smokes in hand. He leaned against the truck bed, lit up, and took long drags. Smoke curled up in the wind, calm as a familiar ritual. After a few minutes, he tossed the butt to the ground, grinding it out with his boot heel, then opened the door of the Ford Ranger and pulled out of the lot. Morales signaled. A gloved agent stepped forward, picked up the butt with stainless steel tweezers, and placed it in a sealed bag labeled Ward_0-30424_ cigarette. The whole thing was fully recorded on video, per protocol. The sample was rushed to the Missouri State Crime Lab. Morales called the technician in charge, voice hoarse with tension. "I need this compared to the DNA from the Whitaker 1996 case. Top priority." The technician simply replied, "If this is who you think, the case is over." 3 days later, on the evening of March 7th, the phone rang in the office. Morales picked up, hearing a woman's voice tremble slightly. "Results just came in. DNA is a perfect match. Odds 1 in 700 billion. He went silent for a few seconds, then responded slowly, "You're sure?" "Absolutely. Full genetic sequence match." Morales set the phone down, hands clenched tight. After 28 years, they'd found male #1. It was Daniel Ward. That very night, he sent an urgent report to the Missouri State Prosecutor's Office and Greene County Court requesting an arrest warrant. In the report, he wrote, "DNA extracted from Daniel Ward's Marlboro cigarette butt matches 100% with the male #1 sample taken from Tanya Whitaker's body in 1996. Biological evidence identifies official suspect." The next morning, March 8, 2024, the warrant was signed. The 3-page fax bore the red stamp, "Approved, execute immediately." Morales held the warrant, sitting still for a long time. In his mind flashed images from the 1996 snow, the red coat, tire tracks, and Tanya's face in the old photo. "We've got him," he said quietly. That afternoon, the cold case unit held an emergency meeting with the Ozark Police Department to plan the arrest. Morales directed, "No warning, no approach at home. He'll be taken right after work, when he's most off guard." The time was set for the afternoon of March 18th, location, a stretch of Interstate 44, a few miles from Springfield Millworks. The waiting days dragged on endlessly. Morales double-checked every piece of evidence, surveillance video, collection logs, Ward's old residence records. Everything matched with eerie precision. He realized Daniel Ward had lived quietly for nearly 3 decades, still smoking the old brand, still in the same trade, still driving the old roads, as if believing time could erase the sin. "He didn't run," Morales told his colleagues. "He just waited for us to forget." On the evening of March 17th, Morales couldn't sleep. He sat by the hotel window, watching the drizzle fall through the streetlights. In his worn notebook, he wrote the final line. "Tomorrow justice for Tanya Whitaker will have a face." The next morning, March 18th, 2024, the air was foggy. 4 unmarked police cars waited around the Springfield Millworks parking lot. At 5:20 p.m., Ward exited the gate, same old routine, gray jacket on, coffee cup in hand. As the Ford Ranger merged onto the highway, Morales signaled, "Go." 2 cars pulled up on either side, the third blocked ahead. Flashing lights, short siren burst. Ward braked hard, face full of shock. Officers approached, reading the warrant. Morales stepped forward, eyeing the man before him. Silver hair, pale eyes still as impassive as ever. "Daniel Ward," he said, voice steady, "you're under arrest for first-degree murder and sexual assault of Tanya Whitaker on January 1, 1996. Ward stood still, just letting out a soft sigh, then bowed his head. As the suspect's transport vehicle pulled away from the scene, Morales watched, a mix of relief and bitterness washing over him. After 28 years, the case had finally spoken. In Jefferson City, the technician filed a copy of the DNA results in the digital file, Whitaker, T. 1996. On the red cover, A new line was stamped, case matched, primary suspect identified. The tiny Marlboro butt, casually tossed in the parking lot on March 4th, had done what decades of investigation couldn't, brought light back to the case buried in Missouri snow. On the night of March 18, 2024, Interstate 44 was shrouded in thin fog. After nearly 30 years, the hunt for Daniel Ward finally reached its end. At 7:42 p.m., his gray Ford Ranger appeared, right on the route, from Springfield Millworks back to his home in Ozark. Morales sat in the command vehicle, eyes glued to binoculars. "It's time," he said curtly. 3 unmarked police cars began tailing, maintaining steady distance. As Ward approached exit 67, the signal crackled over the radio. Morales ordered, "Execute." 2 cars closed in on the sides, the third blocked the front. Headlights flared, siren whooped short. Ward slammed on the brakes, pulling over to the emergency lane. Wind whipped hard, kicking up dust around the blue and red lights. An officer with a bullhorn shouted, "Daniel Ward, kill the engine, hands out the window." He complied, face impassive. When cuffed, Ward didn't resist, just silently bowed his head. Morales approached, reading rights. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Ward nodded faintly, eyes unblinking. By 8:15 p.m., Ward was delivered to Greene County Jail. News spread fast. That same night, the Missouri State Police Chief held an emergency press conference, announcing the Tanya Whitaker case, occurring in 1996 in Branson, has been solved thanks to DNA technology. Suspect Daniel Ward, 57, of Ozark, has been arrested and awaits trial. Within hours, all of Greene County buzzed. 28-year-old cold case solved. Ozark residents were stunned. Neighbors, friends, co-workers all said the same. "It can't be Daniel." A co-worker at the wood shop told a local station, "He was kind, hard-working, never raised his voice." Who would have thought? Another neighbor choked up, "I once asked him to build kitchen cabinets. I thought he was a good man." In Branson, where Tanya was buried, the news silenced the community. In front of City Hall, residents gathered spontaneously, bringing candles and her photos. An old friend of Tanya said, "We've waited nearly 3 decades. Now at least, she's getting justice back." In the Springfield interrogation room, Ward sat still, hands cuffed, face expressionless. When asked if he wanted a lawyer, he only replied, "I'll wait." Morales watched through the one-way glass, seeing the familiar face from years ago, still that chilling impassivity. In his report, he wrote, "Suspect cooperative but not confessing. No signs of anxiety or fear." Technicians took a fresh DNA sample for confirmation, results matching the male #1 profile perfectly. The next morning, news of the arrest hit state TV channels. The headline blared, "Missouri cold case solved after 28 years. Footage of Ward in cuffs ran beside old clips of Ridge Creek Road, snow covered with 1996 police lights. The anchor said, "A case thought long forgotten has finally been closed." In Ozark, Ward's wooden house was sealed off. The investigation team combed the backyard workshop, where he worked weekends. On the bench, they found an old wooden cutting board, with a long crack, matching the forensic description of the murder weapon. All items were bagged, sent for analysis. Neighbors clustered outside the fence, quietly watching the police truck haul evidence away. "We thought he was a good man," one woman whispered. "Now we don't know who to trust." Morales stood at the scene's edge, gazing at the workshop, bathed in yellow lights. In his mind, the pieces came together: wood dust in the victim's hair, the Marlboro butt, the old Ford Ranger, all leading to this man. He felt no triumph, just a heavy weight. After all these years, justice had come, but too late for Tanya, for her mother, for the son now grown, without ever knowing his mother's face. That night, Morales drove alone to Ridge Creek Road, where snow had once blanketed the ground. The path now held only dry grass and bare trees. He stopped, staring at the spot where Tanya's body was found, whispering, "We did it, Tanya. Night wind rustled through the pines, carrying a faint sound like an echo, sad, yet serene. After 28 years, the case bearing her name finally had its answer. On the evening of March 19, 2024, one day after his arrest, Daniel Ward was brought into the interrogation room at the Springfield Police Department. Cold white fluorescent lights bathed the metal table, reflecting the calm face of the man suspected of murder after nearly 30 years. Across the table, Detective Ruben Morales sat silently, a thick file in front of him labeled Whitaker, T. 1996. After 27 years of pursuit, he was finally sitting face to face with the man he believed to be the killer. Ward was not handcuffed. He crossed his arms over his chest, his voice low and steady as he spoke first. "I don't know why I'm here. I didn't kill anyone." Morales looked at him for a few seconds, then gently slid a photo of Tanya Whitaker, taken in 1995, toward him. "Do you recognize her?" Ward glanced at it, responding calmly, "No, I've never met her." Morales didn't rush. He opened the file and pulled out a 1995 lease agreement. "This is your signature, Daniel. Address Maple Hollow Road, Branson, just 2 miles from where her body was found. You lived there from October 1995 to February 1997, right?" Ward looked at the paper, furrowing his brow slightly. "I don't remember. I'm a carpenter. I move around a lot. Maybe I signed for someone else." Morales spoke slowly, "But it was just you living there. And she died near where you lived." Ward fell silent. Morales changed tactics, asking about Marlboro cigarettes. "You smoke these, don't you?" Ward shrugged. "Half the country smokes Marlboros." Morales slid another photo forward. "This one of the crime scene. We found a Marlboro butt at Ridge Creek Road, with your DNA on it. And now the one you tossed in Springfield last month matches it perfectly. 1 in 700 billion odds. You can't deny you were there." Ward leaned back, smirking faintly. "DNA can be wrong. I read the news. They've framed people before." Morales met his eyes, his voice firm. "Not this time. We have 2 samples, 2 time periods, nearly 3 decades apart. Both are yours." Ward looked down at the table, silent for a long moment before saying, "If you think I did it, then prove it. I don't remember that girl, and I've never been to Branson." Morales leaned in slightly, his voice dropping. "Do you really not remember, or are you trying to forget?" In 1996, a witness saw a tall man in a leather jacket, with a southern accent leaving the lantern, with Tanya. "The description matches you. Care to explain?" Ward raised an eyebrow, responding curtly, "That wasn't me. They got it wrong." The air thickened. Morales paused for a few seconds, then said softly, "Daniel, I don't think you're a monster. Maybe that night, things got out of hand. She wanted to leave. You couldn't hold back. I believe you didn't mean to kill anyone." Ward's expression didn't change. He only said, "You're trying to trap me. I don't remember any of that, and I want a lawyer." Morales knew he'd hit the limit. He nodded, closing the file. "All right, Daniel, but remember, silence doesn't erase the truth." Ward tilted his head, saying quietly, "The truth isn't always what you think it is." 2 officers entered, leading Ward out of the room. As the door closed, Morales sat still, staring at Tanya's photo on the table. She was still smiling in the old picture, as if looking through all that cold silence. He recalled what Chief Ridley had once said, "A killer doesn't tremble before the police. He only trembles before his own memories." Morales noted in the report, "Suspect denies involvement, refuses to cooperate, requests lawyer. Demeanor calm, controlled." In the hallway outside, the media had gathered in force. News of the arrest had spread across the state, and now every flashbulb was aimed at the door. Ward had just exited. Morales glanced through the glass, seeing his figure escorted between 2 cops. Slow gait, head down, no sign of fear. A reporter called out, "Has he confessed yet?" Morales replied simply, "Not yet, but we have something he can't deny. DNA doesn't lie." Night fell, and when everyone had left, Morales returned to the empty room. He looked at the chair Ward had sat in, then murmured to himself, "He denies it, but memories can't. In the dim light, the Whitaker, T. 1996 file lay open on the table, its yellowed pages fluttering slightly in the air conditioning, like a reminder that the truth, no matter how long buried, will resurface when someone is patient enough to dig for it. On the morning of March 21, 2024, 2 days after the first interrogation, Daniel Ward was brought back into the Springfield Police Department's questioning room. Morales entered last, carrying a thick file and 3 sealed transparent bags. He placed them on the cold metal table, a Marlboro butt collected from Ridge Creek Road, the filter from one Ward had discarded at Springfield Millworks, and a wood chip from the suspect's backyard workshop. Morales began, his voice calm but icy. "Daniel, I'm not here to ask questions today. I'm here to show you something you can't deny." He slid a sheet of paper toward Ward, printed clearly on it, "DNA match, probability of random match, 1 in 700 billion. Ward stared at the paper, silent for a few seconds, then said, "You could be wrong. DNA can be planted. Someone's trying to make me look like a criminal." Morales gave a faint smile. "Planting DNA in 1996, you really believe that?" "The first sample was taken from the victim's body 3 hours after she died. The second from the cigarette you smoked last month. Both match perfectly." Ward looked down, clenching his fists. Morales continued, his tone heavier. "You've smoked Marlboro Reds for 30 years. The butt at the scene matches the twist, bite marks, and filter fibers to yours. And that's not all. The wood dust in the victim's hair matches the type from Branson Timber, where you worked in 1996, and that wood type was only used by your company. Need I go on?" Ward sighed, trying to regain composure. "I don't know that girl. DNA doesn't mean I killed her." Morales leaned forward. "Then why was your DNA inside her body? Your male #1 in our samples. You lived on Maple Hollow Road, 2 miles from where the body was found. Your job, address, cigarettes, wood dust, it all points to you." Ward fell silent, staring fixedly at the metal tabletop. Morales opened the third bag and pulled out the wood chip. "This was found in your workshop. The cracked surface has old blood stains. Preliminary tests match the victim's blood type. The same wood type was found in her hair and clothes." Ward swallowed hard, but kept his voice steady. "I'm a carpenter. My workshop has hundreds of wood pieces. You're picking what fits to convict me." Morales closed the file, his voice lowering. "Daniel, I don't want to hear more excuses. The truth is right here." He slid the 1996 crime scene photo toward Ward, the body of Tanya by the snowy roadside, next to a white scarf and tire tracks. "She should still be alive. You took nearly 30 years from her, and her son's entire life." Ward glanced at the photo, then turned away. A slight tremor appeared in his hand. Morales saw he was starting to waver. "No one wants to see you die in prison," Morales said softly. "But if you keep silent, the sentence will be harsher. You can talk, or let the court decide for you." Ward gave a faint, bitter smile. "I've lived a normal life. If I'm really guilty, God will judge me first. I don't remember that girl." Morales tilted his head. "You think God will save you from the DNA? 1 in 700 billion. Daniel, there's only one match in the world, and it's you." Ward rested his hand on his forehead, sighing. The confidence from the first interrogation was gone. Morales pressed further. "You know, when I found her body in 1996, the snow was falling as thick as it is now. I promised her mother I wouldn't let this case fade into oblivion. Now, I'm keeping that promise." Ward looked up, his voice low. "I don't need your pity." "No," Morales replied. "I just want you to be honest. Because by the time you get to court, nothing you say will matter." The interrogation room went quiet. The recording device hummed steadily in the corner. Ward said nothing, his eyes fixed on the DNA results sheet. Morales understood. The silence was no longer confident, but tense. He was calculating, searching for an escape amid the web of evidence. Morales spoke slowly, emphasizing each word. "I'll tell you the one right thing you can still do. Tell what happened. Not for us, but for Tanya." Ward forced a smile, his voice hoarse. "She's gone. So there's nothing to say. Morales replied coldly. Wrong. The evidence is still here, and it's speaking for her. Ward bowed his head, his hands clasped together. After a few seconds, he looked up, his voice low. You can believe the numbers. I don't. Maybe someone planted my DNA there, I don't know. But I didn't kill anyone. Morales stood, gathering the evidence bags, his tone decisive. I've heard that before, but no one's had DNA that matches down to the gene. You can stay silent, but justice won't. 2 officers entered, leading Ward from the room. He didn't resist, just glanced back at the results sheet on the table. Morales watched, noting the slight shake in Ward's shoulders, the first small crack in the cold facade. As the door closed, Morales sat alone. He knew the psychological battle continued, but the scales had tipped. DNA doesn't lie, and no matter how Ward clung to his framed theory, the truth had him surrounded. In the hallway, reporters crowded. The TV news ticker ran. DNA proof confirmed. Suspect continues to deny. Morales peered through the foggy glass, murmuring to himself, he can deny it, but the truth can't. That night, he reopened the file, his finger pausing on a scrawled note from his predecessor years ago. Perp may be a woodworker. Nearly 3 decades later, it had been proven by blood, by wood, and by an irrefutable chain of genes. 3 days after the tense interrogation, the cold case unit expanded its investigation into Daniel Ward's background. While checking residency records in Harrison, Arkansas, they uncovered a strange detail. In 1998, Catherine Ward, Daniel's blood sister, was reported missing. The file noted briefly, no signs of foul play, presumed voluntary departure. No body or further information was ever found. Morales read the report, his heart sinking. He called the Harrison Police Department, where veteran Lieutenant Frank Dalton still remembered the case. I remember Catherine, Dalton said over the phone. She vanished after a huge fight with her brother, Daniel Ward. When asked, Daniel said she'd moved to California, but we never verified that. Morales jotted a quick note, disappeared after living with suspect. He and Agent Karen Duvall headed to Arkansas immediately. The old Ward family home was now just a concrete foundation and a few rotting walls. An elderly neighbor recounted, Catherine was sweet, used to babysit for us. Then one day, gone. Daniel moved out not long after. Morales stood silently, in the empty yard, a chill running through him. 2 women, a sister, a stranger, both vanished in Daniel's orbit. Back in Springfield, the team dug deeper into Ward's personal records. They found he'd been arrested twice for bar fights, while in Harrison, and once accused by a neighbor of threatening an ex-girlfriend, in 2001, all dismissed for lack of evidence. Morales said in the briefing, Ward knows how to play nice. He's violent, but always hides behind that quiet demeanor. Duvall nodded, the type who only snaps when rejected. Based on that, Morales planned to ramp up the psychological pressure in the next interrogation. He believed mentioning the sister would crack Ward's calm shell. On the afternoon of March 25, Ward was brought back to the interrogation room. Morales waited, a new file in front of him. As Ward sat, he jumped right in. Daniel, we found records on your sister, Catherine Ward. She went missing in 1998, near Harrison. Ward frowned, his voice rough. Catherine left a long time ago. I don't know where she is. Morales replied, it's odd, because neighbors said you two had a massive fight right before she vanished. Remember that argument? Ward looked down at the table. That was family business. Harrison PD already questioned me. Right, Morales said slowly, and they believed you, because no evidence. Just like us, until we found your DNA next to Tanya Whitaker. Ward looked up, a flash of anger in his eyes. Morales opened the old file, placing 2 photos on the table, Catherine Ward and Tanya Whitaker. 2 women, one your blood sister, one a stranger, both disappeared after crossing paths with you. See the pattern? Ward shook his head, his voice trembling. You're making this up. Morales leaned back. No, we're just looking for behavioral patterns. What happens when someone makes you lose control? Ward gripped his hands tightly, trembling slightly. Morales pressed on. Your sister Tanya, they have something in common. They said no, and you couldn't handle it. I'm not saying you meant to kill, but I believe you've exploded before. Maybe just one wrong minute. The room's air grew heavy. Ward stared at the two photos, lips pressed thin. Morales saw the shift in his eyes, not absolute denial anymore, but mixed with hesitation. Tell me, Daniel, Morales said softly, did you meet Tanya that night? Ward looked up, silent for a very long time. Finally, he exhaled, maybe, at the bar. She talked to me first, asked about carpentry, but that's it. Morales stayed even. Thanks, at least you remember that. What happened after? Ward waved it off. Nothing. I left the bar first. She was still there. Morales tilted his head. But witnesses saw you leave with her to the parking lot. That's when it started, right? Ward met his gaze. You won't believe anything, no matter what I say. We believe the evidence, Morales replied lightly. But I want to understand the real you, not just the numbers in the DNA report. Ward fell silent. The white lights highlighted his weary face, revealing wrinkles and sunken eyes. Finally, he said quietly, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just don't remember clearly. Morales recognized this as the first crack. Don't remember what clearly, Daniel? Her leaving the bar, or what happened after? Ward bowed his head, his voice catching. She laughed, then said something. I don't remember. Morales didn't push. He knew pressing now would make Ward clam up. He only said, I believe you, Daniel. Believe it didn't start with intent to kill, but it ended in death, and now's the time to tell the rest. Ward didn't respond, just stared down at the two photos. As the two officers entered to take him back to his cell, Morales watched, his gaze heavy. He just heard the first glimpse, an admission that Ward had met Tanya. A small chink in the wall of silence, but enough for light to seep in. On the table, the notes recorded the final line. Third interrogation: suspect admits meeting victim Tanya Whitaker at the Lantern, on night of December 31, 1995. No confession yet, shows wavering demeanor. Morales closed the file, sitting still as he looked at the two photos. Catherine and Tanya. Both had vanished from the world while young, and both had fallen into the orbit of the man named Ward. He knew that from this moment, the truth was no longer in the files, it was slowly surfacing in the killer's own mind. On the morning of March 28, 2024, Daniel Ward agreed to meet with investigator Ruben Morales again. After nearly 2 weeks in custody and hours of interrogation, his demeanor had changed. No more coldness or evasion, just sunken eyes, a hoarse voice from sleeplessness. As he entered the interrogation room, Ward didn't look at anyone, only whispering, "If I tell everything, will it stop?" Morales replied, "No, Daniel, but at least the truth will be set free." Ward sat down, placing both hands on the table. After a long silence, he began to speak, his voice slow as if recounting someone else's story. That night, New Year's Eve 1995, I went to the Lantern alone. I didn't go out much, but that day, a friend from the workshop invited me for a few drinks to ring in the new year. The bar was crowded, noisy. I sat at the counter, then she walked in. He paused, taking a deep breath. Her name was Tanya. She smiled a lot, chatted with people around her, looked happy. She asked what I did for a living. I said I worked with wood. She said she liked the smell of pine, it reminded her of Christmas. I smiled too. We talked for about half an hour, then she said her friends were heading out first. Morales silently took notes. Ward continued, around 2 in the morning, I offered to drive her home. She said her place wasn't far, on Maple Hollow Road, so I agreed. Snow was falling heavily, roads empty. She sat beside me, talking about her son, about trying to be a single mom. She seemed tired, but still cheerful. When we reached the turnoff to Ridge Creek, I pulled over, said my house was nearby, if she wanted to rest a bit, have some coffee to sober up. She hesitated, then agreed. Ward bowed his head, his voice fading. I didn't know things would go that far. We talked in the kitchen. I brought out some wine, She took a few sips. I thought she liked me too. I tried to kiss her, but she pushed me away. She said she had to go. It was late. I tried to hold her hand, but she yanked it back hard, yelled loudly. I got angry. The interrogation room fell deathly silent. Morales asked softly, "Then what happened?" Ward replied, "I lost control. I grabbed her shoulders, told her not to yell, that we were just talking. But she struggled free, hit me in the chest. I turned away, then saw the wooden cutting board on the kitchen counter. I just wanted her to stop yelling. I picked it up, swung once. The room sank into stillness. Ward continued shakily. She fell, her head hitting the floor. I thought she was just unconscious, but when I called to her, she didn't respond. I checked. She wasn't breathing. I panicked. I'd never meant to kill anyone." Morales asked, his voice low, and after that, Ward stared down at the table, hands clenched tight. "I thought I had to do something. If I called the cops, they'd say I raped and killed her. I tried to wipe the blood, wiped the counter. I put the wine bottle back, then dragged her to the living room. But as I bent down, I saw her neck twitch a little. I thought she was still alive. I tried to shake her, but she wouldn't open her eyes. I was scared she'd wake up and accuse me. I put my hands on her neck, just for a few seconds, then nothing." His voice choked. Morales stayed silent, letting him speak. Ward went on, "I knew I'd gone too far. I left her there for an hour, didn't dare look. Then it was almost dawn. I carried her to the car, wrapped in a white towel. I drove to Ridge Creek Road. Snow covered everything, no one on the road. I laid her on the roadside grass, thinking people would assume it was an accident or a robbery. I took her purse. A few things fell out. A shoe, a scarf. I didn't pick them up. I drove back, tossed the cutting board behind the workshop." Morales asked, "What about the Marlboro butt?" Ward nodded faintly. "I smoked one when I stopped the car. My hands were shaking too much. I flicked it out before driving off." He paused, looking around the room, then said, "A few days later, the TV news said they'd found her body. I thought I'd be arrested right away, but no one came. I changed jobs, moved back to Ozark, and just kept living like that. I didn't think anyone still remembered it." Morales opened the forensics file, flipping through the pages. Every detail Ward described matched perfectly. Time of death, blunt force trauma wound, ligature marks on the neck, wood dust, white towel, body location, even the Marlboro butt. He nodded slowly. "Everything you've said lines up with the 1996 file." Ward whispered, "I didn't mean to kill her. I just lost control. She was scared, and I was more scared than her." Morales looked at him, eyes cold yet sad. "Why didn't you turn yourself in, Daniel? How have you lived with it for 30 years? Ward looked up, eyes wet, voice deep and gravelly. "I haven't lived, I've just existed. Every time I heard a knock at the door, I thought it was the cops. Every time I saw news about an old case, I turned off the TV, but I've never forgotten. She's still there in my dreams, in the workshop, in the smell of wine." Morales said nothing more. He just placed the pen on the table, sliding the interrogation transcript toward Ward. "If you really want this to end, sign here." Ward stared at the paper for a long time. At the top, it read, "I, Daniel Ward, voluntarily confess to all actions leading to the death of Tanya Whitaker on the night of December 31st, 1995. He picked up the pen with trembling hands. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "but I don't know who to apologize to, her son, or myself." Then he signed, the scrawled letters shaky but clear, "D. Ward." Morales looked at the signature, a simple ink mark, ending a nearly 30-year journey. He gathered the file, stood up, voice steady and low. "Thank you for telling the truth. The rest justice will handle." Ward looked up, eyes hollow. "Justice won't bring her back to life, but at least I don't have to run anymore." As two officers entered to lead him from the room, Ward paused at the door, speaking over his shoulder without looking back. "I've never forgotten the sound of her laugh. That night, I just wanted to talk a little longer." The door closed. Morales sat down, staring at the signed transcript. He opened the crime scene photos again, then looked at Tanya's 1995 photo, the girl smiling in the dim light of the lantern. Now, that smile was no longer buried under white snow. Outside, Springfield's night was quiet. The snow had melted, revealing the old road to Ridge Creek, where a murder had buried justice for 28 years. And in that small room, Daniel Ward's trembling signature was the final closing to that tragedy, a confession matching every piece of evidence, every trace of time. On the afternoon of March 29, 2024, just one day after Daniel Ward signed the confession, Springfield PD Captain Mallory faced the toughest task, calling Ethan Whitaker, the victim's only son. On the other end of the line, Mallory's voice dropped low. "Ethan, this is Captain Mallory, from the Cold Case Unit. I have news about your mother Tanya Whitaker." There was silence for a few seconds, then Ethan asked, voice trembling, "Is there something new?" Mallory took a deep breath. "We've found the man responsible. His name is Daniel Ward, 57, living in Ozark. He's confessed everything, what happened in Branson on New Year's Eve, 1995. DNA and his statement match. The case is officially closed." On the other end, only rapid breaths. Ethan said nothing, then suddenly sobbed. "You're serious, after all these years?" "Dead serious," Mallory replied softly. "We've kept our promise. Your mother has finally gotten justice." The silence stretched. Ethan tried to steady his voice, but tears streamed down. "I don't know what to say. Thank you. I've waited my whole life to hear that." Mallory said gently, "She's gone, but the truth is here now. You can rest easy knowing the man who caused her death will never be free again." After the call, Ethan sat dazed in his small Columbia apartment. On the table was a photo of his mother, Tanya, in 1995, radiant smile under the bar lights. He picked up the frame, whispering, "Mom, I know now." Finally, someone spoke up. 3 days later, Ethan drove to Branson Memorial Park Cemetery, where his mother had been buried, nearly 3 decades ago. Late March in Missouri was chilly, gray clouds hanging like a thin veil of smoke over the hills. He parked, walked slowly to the familiar headstone, etched with Tanya M. Whitaker, 1972, 1996, beloved mother, daughter and friend. In his hands, he carried a bouquet of white daisies and an old photo, the one police had used as evidence, now yellowed with age. Ethan knelt, placing the photo beside the stone. "Mom," he said softly, "they got him. They say you didn't die for nothing." A light wind stirred, rustling the petals. He sat there a long time, as if making up for years without a goodbye. "I've grown up, Mom," he whispered. "I have a job, a home. I don't remember your voice anymore, but I still remember that smile. And now, I know you're at peace." In the silence, faint memories flooded back, laughter, perfume scent, warm hugs, as she rocked him to sleep. All just scattered fragments now, but today, for the first time in 28 years, he felt them piecing together, thanks to a truth, late but enough to dispel the shadows. Ethan placed his hand on the stone, voice choked. "They say he confessed, that he was scared, that he remembers you. But that doesn't matter anymore. The only thing left is justice, the kind you always believed in." He looked up at the sky brightening, weak sun, filtering through the trees. In that moment, Ethan felt his heart lighten. His mother was no longer just a name in a cold case file. She was a voice restored. Before leaving, he propped the 1995 photo against the stone. In it, Tanya beamed, neon lights from the lantern, reflecting in her eyes. Ethan whispered one last time, "Now you can rest easy." As he walked away, the wind flipped the photo slightly, leaving the image of the young woman amid white daisy petals, as if time, at last, had closed the tragic circle, after 28 years of waiting for justice. On the morning of March 22, 2024, Springfield's sky was overcast gray. Under a light drizzle, the prisoner transport van pulled up to Greene County Courthouse. Inside, Daniel Ward sat motionless, hands cuffed, eyes vacant. He wore an orange jail jumpsuit, his posture quiet like a man who'd accepted his fate. As the door opened, camera shutters clicked relentlessly. Press crowded the entrance, KSDK news cameras tracking every step of the man who'd shaken all of Missouri. Inside the courtroom, Ward faced Judge Caroline Hines, silver hair, voice firm. "Daniel Ward, you are charged with first-degree murder and aggravated sexual assault against victim Tanya Whitaker on the night of December 31st, 1995. Do you understand these charges?" Ward nodded faintly, voice raspy. "I do. Do you plead guilty?" "Yes. I've told the police everything." A wave of murmurs rippled through the courtroom. In the gallery, Morales sat still, eyes on the man he'd hunted for nearly 3 decades. No longer a fugitive killer, Ward looked like a worn-out shadow, eroded by his own guilt. Missouri papers ran screaming headlines: "Cold case solved, arrest rocks community." From Ozark to Branson, folks talked non-stop. Everyone claimed they knew Daniel Ward, the quiet, kindly woodworker. No one suspected he was a murderer. A St. Louis Post-Dispatch feature wrote, "He lived among us for 28 years, carrying a dark secret no one saw." 2 weeks later, in the early hours of April 5, 2024, guards at Greene County Jail found Ward unconscious in his solitary cell. He'd used a bedsheet to hang himself. In his pocket, they found a small folded note, scrawled in pencil with just 4 words. "Tell her I'm sorry." News spread like wildfire. Morning papers blared. Murder suspect Daniel Ward found dead in jail cell. In a brief press conference, Morales faced the cameras, voice low. "Justice has been served, though not in the way we hoped. The Tanya Whitaker case is closed, but the pain lingers." Ward's death split public opinion. Some said he got what he deserved. Others regretted that truths about other cases might have died with him. 2 days later, Arkansas police officially reopened the file on Catherine Ward's disappearance, his sister, the 1998 case once shelved. Morales was invited as a consultant for the task force. In an internal meeting, he said simply, "When someone hides a secret too long, they rarely have just one." In Branson, the case's echoes lingered. The once peaceful small town swarmed with reporters. Those who knew Tanya quietly left flowers at Ridge Creek Road, where her body was found years ago. On a wooden sign by the roadside, someone painted in white, "She was never forgotten." A week later, on April 12, 2024, a new memorial for Tanya Whitaker was held at First Presbyterian Church of Branson. The small church, red-tiled roof, rows of old wooden pews, dim light filtered through stained glass windows, falling on Tanya's photo beside the altar, the young woman with a radiant smile, alive in the town's memory. The service was simple but moving. Ethan Whitaker, her son, stood to speak. "My mom died when I was just 18 months old. I don't remember her voice or her hugs, but I know that for 30 years, there were people who never stopped seeking justice for her. They kept their promise, and today, I'm here to say finally, she has been heard." Below, Morales bowed his head. Beside him sat Captain Mallory and Karen Duval, all silent. They knew this moment wasn't for celebration, but for laying down the burden of nearly 3 decades, chasing a promise. After the service, Ethan walked the church hallway, looking out to the backyard grass, where a new memorial plaque stood for unsolved victims. It read, "For Tanya and every voice once silenced." A spring breeze carried jasmine scent from the nearby garden. Morales approached Ethan, hand on his shoulder. "She'll rest easy now, Ethan," he said softly, "and the rest will keep going for Catherine and the others." Ethan smiled, tears falling. "Thank you. I know Mom is grateful too." As the memorial ended, attendees left in silence. Sunset bathed the church steeple, gilding Tanya's photo. The bell rang 3 short tolls, a sound closing a long journey, but leaving echoes that never fade. The day's final TV broadcast showed Tanya's photo beside a "Cold Case Closed, 1996, 2024" sign. The anchor spoke slowly. "After 28 years, the truth surfaced, but peace never came. Outside, drizzle fell on Branson again, but this time, not the cold snow of 1996, but warm spring rain, as if at last, Missouri had exhaled after nearly 30 heavy years. In today's American context, the Tanya Whitaker story reminds us that justice isn't just about timing, but persistence and community ecosystem. Family, police, technology, and everyday folks who won't quit. In Missouri, the male #1 DNA sample preserved for 28 years and later, matched via the DNA family tree initiative, proves the value of long-term investment in scientific investigation. The discarded Marlboro filter from Springfield Millworks parking lot, and wood dust matching Branson timber, seemingly tiny details, became the case-breaking keys. Practical lessons for us. 1. Nightlife personal safety. New Year's Eve at the Lantern reminds us to go in groups, share live locations, and have a clear ride-home plan. A home safe. Confirmation text to loved ones can be life or death. 2. Community solidarity culture. Captain Mallory's call and the Branson First Presbyterian Memorial Show. Healing needs the whole community. Support bounty funds, volunteer search groups, and local cold case units. 3. Balancing privacy and justice. Genealogy saved a case, so when joining genetic databases, read consent forms carefully, and understand data sharing, while pushing for transparency standards over tech rejection. 4. Teaching kids boundaries and consent. Kitchen argument, cutting board swing then neck strangling, is a classic escalation of violence when boundaries are ignored. Schools and families should teach emotion management skills, respecting no, and safe disengagement. Finally, Ethan's image at his mother's grave in Branson reminds us to stay resolute, preserve records, report suspicions early, and trust science and community power combined, so truth can surface before another family waits 28 years. Thank you for joining us on the nearly 3-decade justice journey of the Tanya Whitaker case, where truth was finally found amid time-dusted memory fragments. Subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss other cold case stories, where the past still whispers to be heard.